Call the meeting to order. It's June 24th. It is 5:03, and this is the Bristol County Water Authority Board of Directors meeting. The next item on the agenda is public input. Not seeing any members of the general public here tonight. We'll move on to item 3, the OPEB plan presentation by Brian Corbett from the Angel Pension Group. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
There is item in your packet.
Right here?
Yes, sir.
So let's see. It is. So good afternoon. Just a little introduction. My name is Brian Corbett. I've been with the Angel Pension Group for 22 years. And it looks as though I actually started working on your OPEB plan back when it came to us back in 2009. So I worked on the plan for a few years. It then transitioned from me to someone else as I was working on some other projects. And now it's come back to me due to some retirements. So I'm here to hopefully review the OPEB plan with you and answer any questions. I am the consulting actuary who prepares the report, and my associate David Ward reviews and signs off as a signing actuary. So if I can't answer anything, I would consult with him and get back to you all. So we prepare a valuation report for your OPEB plan. Oh, and if you have any questions during, just raise your hand and stop me. I'd be happy to answer as I'm going. We prepare an actuarial evaluation report for your OPEB plan every 2 years. That's what's required by the accounting standard, GASB 75. So the last evaluation report we prepared was March 1st, 2025. And that report will be used for your financial disclosures ending in February 26th and then February 2027. We will again pick up a new evaluation report starting March of 2027 for the next 2 years. And that's a minimum. Obviously, you can have an evaluation report every 1 year if you need, but it's not my recommendation that this plan would need one due to the size and the complexity of it. So, what we measure for the OPEB plan are the post-retirement medical and dental benefits promised to current active members and retirees, as well as some life insurance as well. So we measure that for this plan, and everything I refer to is as of March 2025. There were 30 retired members and 21 active members, so a total of 51 members eligible for benefits in this plan. This plan was amended per se to close the group for anybody hired after July of 2018 is no longer eligible for this plan. So this is a finite group of participants, and it will begin to reduce as participants pass on and retire, or retire and decline benefits. So the number of 51 is a reducing number. When we run the evaluation report, we have to use some assumptions to value the liability. Those assumptions, I'm going off the executive summary that I provided. At the top there are some key valuation assumptions. Since you have plan assets associated with this plan that you're funding, they have a long-term investment return that we use, which is 6.75%. And that's reasonable based on the level of equities, fixed income, and cash you have in that account. That account, as of the end of February 2026, was at $2.3 million. Because your fund is not, or your OPEB plan is not fully funded, there's not enough assets to associate for every dollar of liability that we measure. Your plan is considered unfunded, and since it's unfunded, we have to the standard accounting standards require us to use a discount rate that's a little bit more conservative to measure liabilities of the unfunded portion. So that's that next line on the valuation assumptions called the 20-year municipal bond rate of 4.2%. That's an S&P rate, it's published, and that's the metric that we use and the industry uses for municipal plans such as yours. For the unfunded portion, that 4.2% is meant to be a risk-free long-term rate. So what we do is we measure the funded portion of your plan and the unfunded portion of your plan at a different discount rate. We merge them all together. We come up with an effective discount rate, which I have bolded here at 5.49%. And that's the discount rate we use to value all liability in your OPEB plan this past year. So it's kind of an averaging between the long-term rate. As your plan becomes better funded, you'll merge more towards that long-term rate of return assumption of 6.75% or whatever it may be at that given valuation date. Any questions so far? I know it's kind of high level. The mortality assumptions we use in the liability, we use a public mortality assumption. Those are published by the Society of Actuaries. And while it says 2010, that is the most current base mortality tables that have been published. We use an improvement scale on top of that because generally people are healthier in the future than they have been in the past. So that MP 2021 is just some a Society of Actuaries mortality improvement scale that we apply on top of that 2010 to bring it up, to make it more of a realistic or up-to-date mortality assumption. The salary scale of 3%, that's used very generally. It's more for the smoothing effect of how we assume your active employees accrue their benefit. The higher the rate of salary scale, the more backloaded an accrual will be. And I'll explain an accrual later. It's a little different than a pension accrual. For an OPEB plan, it's just based on what your salary is today over the future of all your future salary. It's not as simple as a year of service as you would think in a pension plan. And then the retirement assumption, I listed that here because that's a heavy assumption for your OPEB plan for a couple of reasons. One, the age of retirement as early as 55 really can increase the liability of your OPEB plan. But we've seen from history that active members don't retire that young, even though they can. Most of them retire a little later. So we have a very graded retirement assumption from 55 to 70, averages at about 62. And because your OPEB plan provides a rich benefit, which I'll describe again in a minute, if your active members retire at 62 versus 65, it's quite a large benefit that they're provided for that 3 years. And if they retire at 55, it's a very large benefit. So it's a very sensitive assumption. We try to monitor that, but because your population of 21 is so small statistically, that it's kind of hard, right? I think in the most recent year, hasn't reflected March 2025, but it will reflect March 2027. I think there was one member who retired at age 58. He or she waived medical benefits, I believe. But if that person had not, that would be a very large benefit. But since they waived it, it ends up being a gain to the plan. So anyway, that assumption is an important one, more so than the salary scale or the mortality assumption in these terms. So if I had to rank importance of valuation assumptions, discount rate is always number one. Number two for your plan would be a retirement assumption. So if we have any questions on those later, feel free to ask. I kind of glazed over what the benefits are to the participants, to members. So I'll just kind of briefly describe that. I didn't put it in the executive summary, but it is in the valuation report, the 31-page valuation report that was included as well. Your OPEB plan provides active members who retire at 55 and 5, or 62, or 65 and 5, or 70 points. I think those are the retirement assumptions probably under your pension plan that are mirrored over into this OPEB plan. The benefits provided are full medical and dental benefits, like a reimbursement between early retirement age and age 65. And then from 65 on, they are reimbursed benefits for Plan 65, their Medicare supplement plan. In addition, dental is provided. And both medical and dental, I believe at this moment, last I heard, was they have to provide a 20% co-share contribution on their behalf. So Bristol County Water Association is attributable to 80% of the liability, and the employees are providing 20%. And then there's a very small life insurance policy provided as well to retirees up to age 70. And then at 70, it's gone. So it's a temporary life insurance policy.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just to confirm. So all these folks have to go on Medicare. So expectation is they'll be on Medicare, and then the firm here is paying for the prescription plan and the Medigap plan, basically?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my understanding.
Okay.
Couple steps back. So if and I believe there's a new board member, so I'm just going to just describe the OPEB plan as if you've never heard of it. They're slightly different than a pension plan, so that the pension plans have a plan document, especially in the private sector, plan document that's drafted by attorneys and it's reviewed by the IRS and sometimes the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. OPEB plans don't have plan documents all the time. Sometimes it's kind of a promise or something that was written in a union contract, but there's really never a full document that explains all the details. So it's always a evolving plan description. So whatever we describe in our evaluation report is our best interpretation of what the provisions are. You asked if you have to be on Medicare. It's not in our evaluation report. I believe that is the case, but it's not. We don't check that every year to make sure someone's on it. So to answer the question. Let me think about the provisions. I think that covers all the provisions. I did mention that active members are reimbursed their full health insurance costs, or 80% of it, from retirement age until 65. That there is I'll call the very rich formula, because in the evaluation report, I think in the past year, the annual cost for single coverage is $9,500. For a family, it's $26,000 per year. So that's pretty expensive. Compared to the Plan 65 annual cost, which is only $2,800 per year. So there's that big, you have a very large, rich benefit before age 65, and then at 65 when Medicare kicks in, you have that supplemental, which is a little bit more affordable. So that's why that retirement age ends up being a very tricky assumption for us to measure. We want to make sure we get it right over the course of the lifetime of the plan. We'll get it wrong year to year based on how employees retire, but over the course we want that to smooth out and have as many gains as losses. So hopefully that describes the plan and benefits as a whole. If there's no questions, let me know. If not, I'll get into the current measurement of the liabilities and assets and how funded this plan is.
There were some changes, though. I know you would say if someone retires early, it can be a rich benefit, right? But when they made the changes as far as any new participant, no new participants in 2018, they also made a change with respect to that the company only pays 80% of the same amount as if the employee was still here.
Yes.
But if they retire early, they're no longer within our plan. So they have to go and search out their own.
Yeah.
So it becomes actually very expensive, even though we're paying 80%, their 20% they find is really expensive until they hit Medicare.
That's a
Medicare program.
valid point, right?
So we found that they're waiting to 65 rather than retiring early and taking on that.
So you're saying the participation rate before 65, meaning if they choose in or out, is probably less than 100%. That's what we're finding, I think, with the
Right.
last 2 retirees,
Yep.
which sounds
Yes.
accurate. Okay.
Or they go on like their spouse's plan or something like that.
Correct.
They have to avoid that cost that Steve's talking about.
Right.
Sure. And that's,
I mean, that was a change.
Yeah, yeah.
Because prior to that, right, the authority was paying 80% of that, of their full, 100% of their full cost.
mhm. Yeah, it definitely can be expensive for them. I'm not gonna say it's a peculiar provision. We have a lot of plans that say, once you've chosen not to continue, you're out. But you guys are nice enough to allow them to come back in at 65. That's great. I think that's a very measurable benefit, assuming they come back. The hard part is the pre-65, you know. I think we don't have enough data, I guess, as an actuary to say, you know, 50% of the employees will take it and 50% won't. So we've kind of just assumed they would all take it based on the retirement rate assumptions. And then when someone doesn't take it until 65, it's just it's a gain to the plan, a monetary gain. So the liabilities are a little overinflated, but then it kind of dials it back down. And once they hit 65, it's more accurate, if you will. So yeah, that's a hard one. It's a hard one to measure. If you had thousands of employees, it'd be easier to kind of pinpoint a participation rate on that.
Do we have the ages of the 21 people who are active in this right now?
Active age.
Huh?
So one thing I actually forgot to mention, when we run this valuation, our active members are broken into 2 different categories. Fully eligible, those who are already at retirement age, 55 and 5, or 65 and 5, or the 70 points. There's actually 7 actives fully eligible, which means 14 are under the age of 55 generally and not fully eligible. So yeah, there's a chart on page 25 of that long report that has the active members and their age and service. So you kind of see, I've highlighted in the report the 7 who are fully eligible, and then those who are not. You know, a lot of them are young. They're under 35 to 39. That's a big cohort of those who are not fully eligible. You have, I think, 3 members between 60 and 64. Again, that was measured as of March 2025, so just a year older now.
Yeah, there's also a group of employees, and I think within that, those 14, that are fairly on the younger side.
Yep.
They're contributing 1% of their salary to the plan. If they leave the company and do not actually retire, they just fall off.
Yes, that's right.
And yeah.
So that's the, I was explaining earlier the salary scale and how we kind of attribute accruals, and I use that word accrual, for those 14 members who are not fully eligible. Yeah, it's almost like a vesting schedule, where if they're 35, we know at 55, they would be retirement age eligible. They have a vesting schedule that ends up being, if they were hired at 30, then they're 5 years in on the 25-year scale or something like that. So yeah, there's future benefits to be accrued based on this vesting. Vesting, it's the allocation of age. But you're right. If they do terminate employment, then they are gone, and it's a gain to the plan. There is actually a termination of employment assumption in our valuation that we use. I didn't outline it here because it's very small, and it's kind of just again, it's a Society of Actuaries published public termination of employment rate. It's very small because we want to be a little conservative and assume most of those members make it to retirement. I do think it's like maybe 5% a year. I know that it can accumulate over 30 years. 5%, but then it scales back the older they get. So these members are 35 years old. We're using a 2.5% rate. At 40, it's 1.5% per year. So there is that assumption built in that they won't make it to retirement age to get a benefit. The bottom of this executive summary on page 1 talks about the plan's liability and funded status as of February 28th, 2026. We rolled this forward a year. I break out the liability by active members, retired members, and the total is $4.6 million. It's a little slightly heavily weighted on the actives at $2.5 million, but the retiree liability is at $2 million currently. Your plan assets, your trust that you've set up, holds $2.3 million at Washington Trust. So your unfunded accrued liability, or your OPEB obligation as you might see it, is $2,273,000. Or otherwise, your plan is 50% funded, which is good. Because you're not required to fund the plan, the trust, and other municipalities and authorities and associations are not. You guys are, and your funding percentage has increased at least 5% each year since you've started contributing to it. So while it's 50%, that's pretty good.
So question on that, are we kind of average, above average, below average in terms of funding?
For those who elect to fund their plans, exclude the non.
Oh, okay. No, you're average. And for those who have, you're above average on the whole.
Right.
For those who are contribute, you're right about average. And I'll explain that you're putting dollars in to the trust, but you're also paying dollars to the benefits outside, which you get credit for. So the contribution in our actuarial eyes looks larger than you're actually putting into a trust. At some point, your trust will have enough money to pay all the benefits, and we'll say stop paying benefits directly or pay as you go or to the retirees directly, and they need to start coming from the fund. We're not there yet, unless you choose to do so. So that's at the very bottom of this page. I'll talk about that and what that metric will look like. But yeah, you're right on course. It's good. So the funding percentage is 50%. I did want to add in the average liability per member. I feel like this is an important kind of maybe a little eye-opening for someone who doesn't know the OPEB. Because it's not a pension plan where you kind of say, I'm going to get $5,000 a month when I retire, which would be nice. So let's say $1,000 per month. Or Social Security, you get a statement in the mail and you can see what your benefit is. The average liability for a retired member is about $68,000 right now. That's the average age is 72. And for an active member, the average liability right now, of accrued liability, is $120,000 in today's dollars, which is rich. And like I said, a lot of that is that assumption that they'll retire before age 65. Otherwise, we'd be short changing the liability, short measuring the liability. And so that bottom section of this page, the present value of future liabilities, I added this in. This is not in our valuation report, but it's important, especially for a fund that's pre-funding, such as yours. You don't want to get to a point where you're pre-funding, well, say you're at 100% funded, and you say, oh, we're done. That's today's accrual under that vesting percentage I was kind of describing. There are future liabilities for the active members that if you were to fully fund a trust, you might want to consider those future liabilities that are going to accrue as more active members are closer to a retirement age. And right now, that liability is another $1.6 million. So if you said today, all 21 active members are guaranteed to get all their medical benefits and you don't have to worry about the aging in, then we would remeasure your liability at $6.2 million. But because there's that, if they make it to retirement age, that's why you don't have to account for that additional $1.6 million now. And they would eventually just accrue that as the plan ages and they grow and your assets are invested. On that basis, the plan is 37% funded. Again, that's assuming all 21 active members are guaranteed every benefit at this moment, which is not the case. But it's important. It's an important metric to keep in mind in case you do have the trust that ends up being close to 100% funded. That's the next metric to look at. Any questions?
Given that we're on PAYGO, would you say that our asset allocation makes sense for what we're trying to accomplish?
That's close. It's close. I looked at that today, and 60% equity. You know, especially seeing that you're paying out your own benefits. So I think it's fine if you were to make any movement. If the board was nervous about the economic environment, maybe dial the equity down to 50 and have it a 50% equity, 50% fixed income cash. But I mean, that's splitting hairs. It's just 10%. If I wouldn't increase the equity more than 60% based on where you're trying to attain here. So the second page of the executive summary does actually talk about your contribution. There's an actuarial determined contribution that we include in our valuation report every year. And then at the bottom talks about the employer contributions historically over the last 3 years. So you kind of have an idea of what the contributions to the trust have been and the pay as go. So I'll start with the actuarial determined contribution. In our valuation report, we've assumed that you take the unfunded liability, your OPEB liability, and you're amortizing that over 30 years. That's the minimum. You could consider that, the average life of the plan, 30 years, average life of a member. But I also wanted to show you the 15 years, and I included 20 just to show in the middle, but I was more interested in showing the 15-year amortization. And why that would be important to me as an actuary is that that's the average service of your active members right now. So if you are trying to balance a budget and you have your active members, they have some type of salary that they're paying into, and you can associate whatever contributions you're making over their service lifetime, so that when they would retire and all you have in this plan is retirees, under a 15-year amortization, presumably the plan would be 100% funded, and you can generally stop contributing and let it just kind of invest and run out as those retirees survive. So that's why I showed you the 15 years. But what that does is increase the contribution about $70,000 from $295,000 per year to $365,000 per year. So it's not something that you need to do. It's just something that's a range to show you if that's what you're interested in. The $295,000 is funny though, because just last year you contributed $282,000, and that's that third column of the employer contribution on the bottom of that page, fiscal year ending 2026. And what that is a total of is your employer payments, pay as you go. So $117,000 went to retiree payments, dental, life insurance, and minus the employee contributions. And then you actually contributed to the trust $165,000. So you were almost at that actual determined contribution on a 30-year amortization scale. So you're right there. I have to say, if your assets improved and your plan's a little better funded, we might find that your plan, because it's better funded, is going to use a higher discount rate next valuation cycle, which is going to reduce all these costs as well. So it's going to be kind of some type of circular calculation. That 5.49% is going to be closer to the 6 3/4 because you're better funded. And since your contributions are almost at the actual determined contribution, then we can assume that for the next 30 years, they'll almost be that level, which will then let us use a higher discount rate, which will lower the liability.
Question.
Yes.
Based on your experience, how many plans would you say contribute at least the actuary determined contribution?
Not many.
Relative to-
Not many. No, they have, many boards have a whatever policy structured that they've created, right? It's either a percent of pay of their payroll, or they can budget $500,000 on a plan that's largely missed, or whatever, X $1,000. But no, it's rarely do we have any plans that contribute the full actuarial determined contribution. That's why we use 30 years, because that's the minimum in the standards, and not many plans get to that anyway. Like I said, I think, I'm guessing the next time we value your plan, if you kept up with the contributions at the level you have, I think they will meet the 30-year actuarial determined contribution.
But as a practical matter, in theory, we should be incurring the cost over the employee's service life, right?
That's like, yeah,
So which argues for the 15 years.
The 15.
Not the 30.
correct.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's something that we could remeasure. In the next valuation report, we'll show the 30. I think we showed 30 and 20, just as like a footnote. We can better show the 15, so you can look at that time when we remeasure this in 2027, like I said. But yeah, I think over the lifetime is a better measure. That way you're not funding for benefits after everybody's retired, especially on a closed group like this. So generally, that's all I wanted to talk about as like kind of a global where your plan is right now, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions about the OPEB plan, if you have any.
Any other questions?
Right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. And next time you all want to talk, if we want to get in the habit of me coming every 2 years with the new report, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I don't know that. Thank you. Nice meeting you all.
Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. First one is the May 20th, 2026 Properties Committee meeting. A motion to approve. Second. Is there any comments, corrections regarding the minutes of the Properties Committee? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
We have 2 abstentions, Richard and this guy over here. What's his name? Steve Brooks. The next 7 minutes is from the annual meeting of May 27th, 2026.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any comments, questions, corrections on these minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye to approve.
Aye.
Any abstentions or negative votes? None. Okay. Move on to the board meeting of May 27th. Yeah, board meeting
Motion to
May 27th.
approve.
Motion to approve the minutes, second. Any discussion, comment, or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
One page.
Yeah, it's just one page, it's right here. It's one page, you might have that stuff in the packet maybe, or?
It's at the last page.
I'm not finding it, but if everybody has it, the minutes of the Finance Committee from June 9th, 2026.
So moved.
That's a motion, any second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been seconded to approve the minutes from that meeting. Any comments, corrections?
I believe Rich made the motion to go into executive session, so.
Got a better memory than I do.
Yeah. I just know I never make a motion as the chair, so.
Okay, with that correction, are there any other corrections? Okay, hearing none, motion to approve the minutes as corrected. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Okay. Move on to the executive director's report. Mr. Kuchar.
Mr. Chairman, report for June 24th for the Bucket Pipeline Project. We have Beta's monthly progress report, and I just got some highlights of that report. So they have received the DOT comments for the utility permit for all the roadway work. They received that last week, and so they're going through those comments. I also note that I think at the last meeting I had mentioned that there was a DOT project that had been advanced, and we were looking at the possibility of potentially getting our pipe in the ground prior to them paving the road. I had a phone conference earlier this month with DOT officials in the city of East Providence, and just given the timing, it's federal funds that they need to draw down by the end of 2027, and it just felt like the whole thing was going to have been way too rushed. So they're going to move forward. They're going to pave that section of Tuckett Avenue, and we'll just have to work around that with our project.
So they'll pave this section of Pawtucket Avenue, 3,400 feet, where we're going to put a pipeline sometime after 2027. And I think I might have asked this before. In the past, they used to have a moratorium on opening up state roads after they had done a paving project. Do they still have that?
They do, 5 years.
So is that going to hamper us in going forward with the project?
We'll have to see.
Should we send some kind of letter to DOT saying we think you should postpone? And they can't because of the limitation on their federal funds, right? Well,
What's our holdup relative to that section?
There's really not, it's not really our whole, it's nothing on our end. You know, we could be getting in there, I would say, in the springtime, but it was DOT and East Providence who were not supportive of that plan. And since East Providence is supposed to be a partner of this project, they're not on board.
but are they not on board because they think we would delay getting the streets?
DOT, according to DOT, they've been involved in other projects with other utilities and/or municipalities where promises have been made of getting work done in advance of their work, and that not happening. And so they just thought the timing was just too tight in relationship to, you know, when they were going to start doing their work.
What does drawdown mean? What does that operatively mean? Do they have to finish the work, or they are taking the funds to begin the work?
Funds to be used up.
It's got, the funds have to be obligated and stuff.
So they're looking at paving in the fall next year.
So there's no way we could get that section of pipe designed and ready to go out to bid within their time frame.
I think we could, but they were just not comfortable with that.
Who they?
DOT.
They were uncomfortable with us putting a pipe in the ground?
They didn't think that the timing would be able to meet that time frame.
So if you go out to bid, get it all done.
Plus the fact that you don't
Dig the
have,
hole, you put the pipe in, you cap it, you cover it back up, and it's done. What do they care?
you don't have,
It's the common sense is going on.
Well,
It's DOT.
But
plus the fact that it didn't leave a whole lot of time for settlement, you know, they're afraid that if you use significant trench work, you know, then they pave the road, then you start seeing settlement in different sections of the road.
But a year later, in 2028, I would suspect we would be ready to go to tear up that road to put a pipe in the ground.
Well, not necessarily, because the project is so big. You can work around that area, and that could be one of your last areas that you do.
I guess it would have to be.
To me, it says that being the first, that couldn't be the last. 5 years later.
And who has to approve a waiver for this 5-year? If there's such a thing as a waiver for it?
I mean, I think there is a waiver. I mean, they're not gonna want you to be there in year one and year two.
Yeah.
I
I think there is some flexibility.
I feel like we should be on record with DOT as saying we want to do this project before you do your project. Because it's gonna save us money and it's gonna save you money and time. It's gonna, citizens of East Providence aren't gonna see their road torn up twice in a period of time. You know, it's a classic, they just tore that road up. Why are they tearing it up again? I don't know.
That was all relayed to them.
What does anybody else think about this?
I just asked the question, is it worth writing a letter to DOT and saying we could be ready to coincide with your work on, what is it, Pawtucket Avenue? And see what their response is. So at least we get something in writing from DOT.
We're willing to try to accelerate this section of our project so that you can do your work after we're completed. And we can both save.
Yes, but I think we should ask that,
So is there a motion to direct the director to send such a letter? Or is there a consensus?
being a wordsmith, I'm not a real wordsmith, I just think we
If
should.
it's the will of the board to really push this, I'll do what we can. I'll do what we can.
There's no vote on it. It's not an agenda item, so he'll just do it.
Okay. Okay. But it's the consensus of the board members that this is in the best interest of Bristol County Water Authority to push this portion of the project forward.
I mean, I see a distinction between asking them to wait until we're finished as opposed to asking them not to do it before the fall of 27. That puts the burden on us to get our job done before they are scheduled. So it gives them the opportunity to do what they apparently are planning to do anyhow.
Okay.
They're gonna pave it. And you say it's like a moratorium of 5 years. Even if they waive the moratorium, then we're gonna be obligated to pave curb to curb after.
Correct.
We're caught in a bind.
It's unfortunate that this is the section that they chose to pave, really.
Yeah.
Is all that they're doing is paving, or is there?
It also includes the widening of the intersection of Waterman and Pawtucket Avenue to make dedicated left turn lanes.
I agree with Juan, though. I think for the benefit of our repairs, I think we should go on the record and write a letter. If they shut us down, they shut us down, but, you know.
I would think that these problems would be important, because if we have to go back and repave, that's more expensive, eventually they're gonna burn. Just us.
So the director has the feeling of the board.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's unfortunate that our engineers didn't have this on our table a year ago.
That's true too.
Unfortunate is putting it mildly.
Yeah, right, and because of that, also they're doing some redesign work due to some national, non-energy work, gas main work that's been advancing in certain locations on Waterman Avenue, also Clyde Avenue in East Providence, requiring some redesign work on Meta's part as to where they're going to put the pipe. That's kind of, money and control station is moving forward. We're trying to get a meeting with DOH, but has been unsuccessful at this point.
That's the mixing thing?
The money and control
Isn't
station,
it like stuck at 30%?
well, they're moving towards 60.
Okay.
Okay, so for the treatment plant in the garage, we have items on the agenda this evening to advance both those projects. For the Shad Factory pipeline, Park Corporation has started filing submissions to regulatory permit agencies involved with that project. And we also submitted 2 grant applications associated with the Shad Factory pipeline project to DEM and one to an EPA managed program. For the lead service line program, the DOH subcontract continues reach out activities and conduct inspections for our customers. Water purchases for the month of May were up 5% compared to this time last year. For the year to date, we're on par with our 5-year average. The graphs are attached. For public information, we put a press release out for the Warren Times, notifying folks of the work that's taking place outside here on Charles Street. And we also completed our 2025 water quality report. That's included within your packet. Everybody should receive this. And postcards go to all customers, notifying them that the report has been completed and they can be accessed on our website. And we also provide additional printed copies to town halls and libraries.
Steve, what was the approximate savings on not mailing it out? You know,
Savings,
on not mailing this out to all the customers?
I don't know.
Okay, and I guess
But that was a change made a number of years ago. It used to be at one point, we had to actually provide this.
Right.
And the regulatory change, regulations changed that we only, wording to is only need to provide a postcard.
Okay. It's just nice to brag about that. It's a great report, you know, and get it out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's not a bad, so you're saying we should potentially look at getting put this to all
No,
customers?
the other thing, and I don't know the billing, you must probably use a vendor and give them a mailing list
Correct.
and the amounts, right?
Yeah.
Can you tri-fold the insert or some other simple insert into the billing when it goes out on a quarterly basis? You know, as an option. Just a thought, just something to know about.
You could issue a press release that, on this.
Yeah, it's a great.
Press release on this?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is, next year, this has to be prepared twice a year.
Oh, twice.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you put a QR code on the bill?
The
whole thing opens up.
Yeah. Well,
Text on nothing.
all right. Go back. We hired and onboarded 2 seasonal summer laborers. We had forklift training for our water utility operators on 2 separate dates. The annual report is pretty much wrapped up, and we'll be going to print on that soon. And I did not include this in my report. I was away last week, so I prepared my report the week before, a little earlier than than usual, but I guess middle of the month, from the Rhode Island Water Resources Board, the governor did issue a drought advisory. I'm sure there's been some news reports on that. And that's through a recommendation to the Drought Steering Committee from the Rhode Island Water Resources Board, and they look at a number of different indices, groundwater levels throughout the state, stream flow conditions, precipitation data, and they have a matrix that they use to determine whether it's normal, advisory, moderate drought, and so there's different levels of it. So at this point, given the levels of certain conditions, there is a drought advisory. But what's really interesting is that even though it's a small state, it varies dramatically from one part of the state to the next. So water utilities that are more groundwater dependent, say, for example, the southern part of the state are kind of feeling it. Here, where we rely on the Situate Reservoir, very robust watershed, they are at like 97% capacity. They just stopped flowing over the dam just recently.
Last night it filled up.
Yeah. I mean, so, and southeastern Massachusetts has been almost in a drought warning for actually quite some time, and that is the watershed that the Kitchener relied upon. So, tying into the Providence system was a good idea. All right, Mike, any questions? Mike's not here this week. I can just touch on a couple of his items. We had our large tank on Metacom Avenue inspected through a remote operated vehicle. No indication of the inside the tank looks good. Other than that, he did not make mention of it, but last week, on June 17th on the evening, it's had quite a bit of planning involved, but the emergency pump station that's up on Pawtucket Avenue that was built as part of the Cross Bay Pipeline, that's across the street from the Knights of Columbus on Pawtucket Avenue in East Providence, that's now under the control of East Providence. That pump station was built to provide an emergency flow of water to the East Providence water tanks from our Cross Bay Pipeline. And that was built in 1998, that pump station. Last week, for the first time, that was successfully run where we filled their tank with water from the Cross Bay Pipeline. So we ran a test, and we were able to fill at 3.5 million gallons a day for about a couple hours between 10 o'clock and midnight last week. So it was a successful test, and it had no impact on our system. Granted, it was not the best time of year to do it because it's like summer and demand is high, but we planned in advance. We had our tanks completely full in advance of the test, so the customers did not feel any impact here. It was good.
How do you, I'm sorry, but how do you tell everybody that? I appreciate that, and I think it's a great thing, you know, to the general public, you know, people from East Providence say, hey, if in the event of an emergency or something like that, we were able to take care of you throughout the thing. We verified all of our emergency response stuff.
Website, Facebook,
I just asked the question. I know that.
I mean, I think it's just an operational.
Yeah.
I think so.
You did good. You should be telling people. That's me.
Steve, just to go back on one thing on the report on beta. Anything to be concerned about as it relates to this railroad, additional risk mitigation and options?
We're pushing back on that. They say they seem to come kind of out of nowhere with this request. It was fairly recent. Yeah, they want to put, so this has to do with the utility bridge that goes over the railroad. They now want us to put the pipe within a carrier line. The risk if the pipe starts leaking and falls on it, and the rain and the water falls on the track. I don't know. Rain falls on the tracks. Trying to figure out where this concern is coming from.
Is there any party that can mitigate the discussion, or is it, we got to get this done?
It's a fairly new development, so right now I'm having data work through it, and we'll see where it goes.
I have a pretty short report this month. As you can see on Child Street, Oil Authority has begun installing a temporary bypass system, getting ready for the Cleveland Lining project. They're still thinking July and August this year to do Child Street and the southern section of Medicom. And Oil Authority also had the capital improvement project last year, and part of that project was some pipe installation on Naomi Street and getting out of Bristol. And they just did, I wrote this last week, they milled the curb-to-curb sections of it on Monday, and they just paved it today. They had canceled paving on Tuesday due to the rain.
I drove over it on the way here, and I said, wait a minute, this wasn't here the other day. And it seemed like it was done really, it was a very smooth transition from old pavement to the new pavement. There didn't seem to be any manholes or catch basins that were buried or popped up and so forth.
Yeah, they'll put on temporary marking. I think it's either tonight or tomorrow. Just get ready for the 4th of July, and then after a couple of weeks do the actual epoxy marking, final striping.
You don't have to do red, white, and blue.
Not that section.
Oh, gee, screw up the parade.
Yeah.
They should do. Thanks.
No problem.
Daniel,
All right, we're a quarter of the way through the year. Go to page 4 there. May versus May, revenue's pretty flat, it's up just a little bit compared to last year. The expenses are a little bit lower than last year. Really the bulk of that is just less in the way of professional fees. Last year we had some North Farm stuff, and North Farm has been resolved, so I anticipate the professional fees being a little lower, just on that alone. The operation of other expenses a little low, about $7,600. There was timing on that one. There's some repairs that are in there right now. There's actually a check for some repairs before the actual expense hit, so that should smooth out. And those decreases were offset by a little bit of an increase in employee benefits, related to the increase in the health insurance premiums and a little bit of an increase in the 457 match. We go to page 5, the through May information. Revenue is down just a little bit, about 0.5%. Again, that's pretty much on target. Expenses are down approximately $36,000. Big 3 things there: professional fees, computer expense, and operations maintenance expense. So the overall decrease in the operations maintenance expense is just really timing. Last year, at the beginning of the year, we had that $49,000 invoice to, I think, the town of Barrington for some work. So that's why that's a little off. Professional fees we've already discussed. And the decrease, those decreases were offset by a little bit of an increase in computer expenses. That's a little timing thing too. There's a new maintenance contract in there, I think. And I might end up reclassifying that so I can amortize that out the year. There's actually two pieces of it. One goes 3 years. So there's a little timing with that, and then some purchases in there, some cute computers that Randy had purchased, as he mentioned in his report prior months, that eventually might end up being capitalized. So those should smooth out too. Page 6 has the actual budget through May. Revenue is over budget about 5.2%. That's just the current usage being a little higher than budgeted. I think I've managed to find a good mix on how to spread that revenue out over the year. So I think that hopefully that smooths that out over the year too. Expenses are under budget, just under 10%. Big 3 areas there are purchase service, professional fees. Purchase water is a little under budget, about $89,000, and operations maintenance expense is under about $39,000. And I anticipate that'll probably level off a little bit as this is just kind of the beginning of when they really start getting going with some of their projects. The pages 7 through 9 are your dollars billed and gallons delivered. Hopefully you notice the colors a little brighter this month because I printed them all out instead of putting them through the copier. The dollars billed increased about 5.18%, and the consumption's up about 2.67%, and the difference is about 2.5% or so, and that's really the increase as it flows through the system. Page 10 is the trust fund report, and the debt service ratio for May is just under 12. It was 12.46 last month. And page 11 has the pension summary report. We had a good month. There's an increase of the month of almost $135,000, largely due to the unrealized gains for the month. And the investments are up almost $400,000 since the beginning of the plan year. I haven't checked the market today, but we'll go with as of May for now. And I put in the pension summary report, not pension summary, the OPEB summary report on page 12 for informational purposes for Mr. Steve's request. And as of May, we're up to $2.459 million. As a kind of quasi aside, the audit is done. I should actually have had the audit by today, but I'll email that file. They pretty much finished it yesterday. And should have sent them to me last night, but I'll touch base with them tomorrow to get copies. So the audit's all set, so I'll be able to get those to Lauren as well for the annual report. And they'll be here next month. What is that?
Any other questions of Dan?
Have we received all the monies we're gonna get from North Farm?
Yes, everything's complete.
That's
They're current, they're paying their bill. I think they're probably at least 2 bills in, maybe 3, coming up on 3 bills in, and paying completely when everything comes due, so.
So you can move in over if you want.
I'm gonna sick Joe on him.
What do you need? I got enough.
You missed the good old days, right?
No, I really don't.
Thank you, Dan. Any reports regarding town councils?
No.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Finance Committee Board vote on investment plan. Proposed motion. Steve?
Yeah, if you wanna.
Sure. So the Finance Committee met on June 9th, and we tasked both Steve and Dan on looking what to do with our unused cash that we are kind of holding there in reserve for both, the maintenance garage and the Pawtucket pipeline, and, other future projects. So Steve and Dan went to one of our investment relationships, and they kind of ran a investment product across for us, which closely relates to Treasury, so they're very safe assets. and they can kind of do sort of like a ladder where, you know, if we need assets at a certain time, they can make sure that they're, make them available to us. It's just, they need a little bit of time to be able to work those assets to us. And, you know, we're only looking to do not the entire cash balance, obviously. We always need some operating cash to offset any unexpected expenses. Is there anything I missed there, Steve?
No, that's good. And so what we'll be looking to do is work with US Bank and finalizing the strategy. So, you know, we'll have like X amount of dollars in state remain within our current money market, at least $10 million, and then we take the remainder and break that up, and then they can be invested in treasuries for certain periods of time, say 6 months, and then also you have a bucket in a year and a bucket in 18 months. So you'd always have, you know, those funds becoming available back to the authority, and then we just kind of continue to roll that in.
You have to select time period.
They picked that, they have the time period set up in the if you look at the thing that Steve included, and it's basically 6 months. So 6 months, then 12, then 18, then 24, then everything will work out. And so we'll always have something out 3 years, but there'll always be something coming due in 6 months. So that we felt that gave us enough time to be able to maneuver, like if we know some of the bigs coming up in a couple of years, we can have them not renew the next couple of turns of cash. So we'll have, you know, 10 million available.
And if we want, we renew it at maybe a higher rate or whatever the prevailing rate is.
I think they'll just step it out, like, so when the 6 year comes due, they'll do a 3 year one. So every time you'll always have, in this case, it looks like 5 million every 6 months coming free. And like I said, with the big albatross being the pipeline, we'll have enough heads up in terms of when we'll need that cash, but we can start telling them, like, okay, hold the next couple, so we'll have 10 million available versus rolling those in. So it'll give us flexibility to manage those.
How much is in each step of the ladder? It's
5 million. And we came up with that 10 million keeping free based on kind of, that's roughly what the O&M budget is every year. So we're naturally, I don't want to say creating cash, we're collecting cash during the year anyways, but that'll give us kind of a year O&M buffer on top of what we're collecting for the current period, in addition to what comes free every 6 months.
I mean, it gives us a little higher percentage rate than we're collecting now.
Yeah, because I think we're more in money markets now, so this,
Think it's
term deposit
$1.
treasuries.
No, I was just I was hoping I was going to be rich enough someday to do one a month and keep rolling.
So we have
I'll make a motion that we accept the investment plan as proposed.
Second. We have a proposed motion and a second. And I want to make sure that the motion is what needs to be.
For the investment plan is recommended by
The
the finance
proposed
committee.
motion in the memo was to approve the investment plan as recommended by the finance committee and authorize the executive director to finalize and execute the plan documents with US Bank. The investment plan will be subject to review annually by the finance committee. That's exactly what your motion was, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any more discussion about that? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the unanimous vote on that. That's a good thing. The next item on the agenda, item number 9, is board vote on contract award for demolition of the former water treatment plant. Stephen Kuchel.
So we went out to bid, received bids on June 11th. 2 bids are received, a Regan Company and Squazzy Brothers. The bid was set up and as a base bid. The base bid was the main treatment plant building. The alternate was the old station structure, the smaller building. So you can see the 2 numbers there. Low bid is AA Wrecking, for, if you include both buildings, a total bid price of $501,700. We also had our engineering consultant, Park Corporation, review the bid documents submitted. They are recommending the little better AA Wrecking. It's noted that they successfully performed the first phase of plant demolition for us about 3 years ago. However, Park Corp did notice some items that were lacking in the bid response. Is notably, they're requesting that if, upon approval, that it be contingent that AA Wrecking provide the following items. That includes a site-specific health and safety plan, and also confirmation that the health and safety plan will be followed in accordance with OSHA requirements. And then also satisfactory verification of AA Wrecking's performance in material and payment bond. So I'm recommending that at this, I mean, given the numbers here, you know, the contractors on site, we still have not received any viable interest in the building, either building, that we move forward with the demolition of both buildings.
The executive director has a proposed motion in his memo. Do we have a motion to that effect or another? So moved as written
Yes, sir.
and seconded. Any further discussion?
I just have one question. Did the town of Warren get notified of this, or would that happen once we sign up? Not that it's gonna make any difference.
The contractor has to take a permit.
Well, I did notify the town that we're going out to bid.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And I'll notify the town that we issued an award.
Okay.
But I'll wait, I'm not gonna issue an award to the contractor until we get these items.
And I know every councilman in the county looks forward to my tri-town report, and that will be in the
You
tri-town
wish.
report. So I know they read every word. So we have a motion, a second. Do we vote?
You should.
We should. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
We
opposed?
have a date for when they would
None
stop.
opposed, the motion carries.
I don't have a date as of yet. Once I receive all these items that we're requesting, we'll get a date. And once they receive a notice to proceed, they have 180 days.
We have to look at.
To complete? To complete.
And we have to look at what we want to save
Chris was gonna do that.
And that's up to anybody here. You know, I was telling Juan earlier, I went through the building with staff and just kind of looked to see if there's anything really that we could keep and maybe add into the new building. There were some, you know, kind of, some of them, they weren't that old, but some old, like the valve stems, you know, so they took a bunch of those out, and they could almost be used as bollards somewhere on a project. And there was also the large double doors that were at the loading bay in the front. It's all plywood now, but we took the doors down. But they had some pretty cool hinges on them. I mean, what we're gonna do with them, I don't know, but they're cool. That's about it.
You don't want to put them away for somebody else to throw away 20 years from now.
But I guess we may save some of the. We have to cut. They're called the corbels, which is part of the roof, the roof line.
Hey, you're all set.
Okay, good. Okay, and the next item on the agenda is board vote on task order to the Power Corporation for engineering services related to design of the new operations building. Steve?
Yes, but following completion of the schematic design plans and given the properties committee review of those plans and the board's review of those plans, we've asked for design services to advance those plans to 60%. Also taking into account the comments that were made during the design phase, and they've also provided a memo in response to some of those comments, and essentially, you know, they basically state for all of them that they'll consider the comments as they advance the plans a little more. So the scope of work is advance the plans to 60%, and then also start the permitting phase of the project, including the local permitting going through the master plan, land development project requirements through the town. And so that fee is $418,250. Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the task order for second from Power Corporation to provide engineering services related to design of a new operations building for a not to exceed fee of $14,250.
Do I have a second? Second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Can I ask our attorney if we found anything in the original act that created this authority that exempts us from local boards?
No.
Nothing. Oh, I was with that. I was with the try.
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda is executive session. Ask for a motion to go into executive session regarding the Providence Water Supply Board docket 2451 WW compliance following. So moved. Second. All those in favor of going into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
We are going into executive session. Executive session.
Motion to seal the executive session minutes.
Second. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting, any opposed? None. The meeting minutes are sealed. The next item is next scheduled meeting, July 23rd, 2026. I guess we're back to Thursdays. And the last item is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. We're adjourned.